So today our topic is workplace. Workplace transformation is one way to look at it, but just understanding the workplace I think is pretty important because it's become a very dynamic thing. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, workplace was pretty much well known. In one simple sense, workplace has become people centric. Where people are there, that's where there is a workplace. That appears to be the new. But again, that might change in the future, I don't know.
My name is Sachin. I'm coming from Kurla Nagrik Sahakari Bank.
My name is Akshay from Palo Alto Networks Bank.
Welcome, Akshay.
Myself is Sanjay Kale from GS Mahanagar Cooperative Bank.
Good evening team, myself Minu Shinde from GS Mahanagar Cooperative Bank.
Myself is Sachin Papale, GS Mahanagar Bank.
Myself Swapnil Salunke. I am from the Kalyan Janta Sahakari Bank.
Myself is Ananta Kulkarni from Kalyan Janta Sahakari Bank.
Good evening. Myself Kishore Godba from Deccan Merchant Cooperative Bank.
Deccan, okay.
Great evening, sir. This is Jagdish Vichare from Deccan Merchants Cooperative Bank.
This is Deepali Gaikwad from Mumbai Cooperative Bank.
Good evening all. Myself Amol Savan from Mumbai Cooperative Bank.
Good evening. My name is Ranjit Patil from Navi Mumbai Cooperative Bank. I am AGM over there.
My name is Prakash Karadon from Navi Mumbai Cooperative Bank.
Hey, good evening. I am Srinivas from Saraswat Bank.
Good evening. I am Milind Warerkar from Saraswat Bank.
Good evening. Vishal Rathod from NKGSB Bank.
My name is Dhammapal Dongre. I am from Ambernath Cooperative Bank.
Myself Venkatesh Yute, Chief Manager, Ambernath Jain Cooperative Bank.
Good evening all. I am Santosh Mohile coming from SVC Cooperative Bank. Good evening. Myself Dilip Pense, SVC Bank.
Good evening. This is Vinod Rawatka. I am from Municipal Cooperative Bank, Mumbai.
My name is Sadanand Nayak. I am CEO of Konkan Mercantile Bank.
Myself Surendra Chavan from Municipal Cooperative Bank.
Thank you, Surendra. Thank you for joining us. So let's begin our chat with Tariq Ansari. Tariq is the head of pre-sales for the West region at Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto is a well-known company. I think it's a company that has done phenomenally well, that has grown and expanded, and in terms of not just business, but the solutions that it offers. Tariq he's worked with a large number of banks, insurance companies, mutual funds, stock exchanges in his role in pre-sales, interacted with them. And the word problem pre-sales is that it actually conveys the wrong meaning. It's not less to do with sales and more to with customer understanding, customer insights, customer engagement, all those kind of things. So Tariq will like to figure out some of the things that you got out of those engagements, apart from all the knowledge about security and technology and Palo Alto that you have. So the first thing I want to start with you, Tariq, is during the last 1 or 2 years, 1 or 2 or 3 years since COVID started, what has been some of the notable interactions that you have had with some of the banks about some of the biggest problems that they have suddenly begun to face.
Correct.
It is one thing that, so I'm really more interested in when something comes suddenly, because then there's not much time to think.
Correct.
And do an analysis and do 10 meetings and all that. Correct. People have to react quickly.
Correct.
Something that people have discussed with you as wanting a quick solution to a problem that has suddenly emerged.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Manoj. So first of all, thank you very much for having me here.
Sure.
And giving this opportunity to talk about my experiences, my knowledge about the banking sector. I've been fortunate to work with some of the large banks for almost 22 years, right? So if you talk about PSU banks, if you talk about private banks, if you talk about stock exchanges, in some shape or form, I've been associated with some of the large projects. Whether it was core banking rollout, I was with Cisco, I was with Radware earlier, right? Whether it was taking application to internet banking related projects, right? Whether it was applications, whether it was data centers, and now with Palo Alto Networks, almost 8 years with Palo Alto Networks, right? Helping some of the large banks to secure their workloads, employees, workplaces, applications, and so on and so forth, right? Coming to the question, see, when pandemic hit us, nobody was really prepared. right? How do we respond back to that? And then suddenly government imposes lockdowns and stuff like that. I think every industry, every business was trying to figure out how do we come out of this situation, right? There was a lot of hopes, there was a lot of things which were going on, but banks, being an essential component, right? It was expected from the banking community to come out of that very fast, very quickly. And if you go back and analyze, right, banks were never really into lockdown. All the employees resumed office or work as early as possible compared to other industries, right?
Yes.
So at that point in time, one of the large bank reached out to us. I'm talking about a bank size of 1,50,000 users and plus, right? Private bank. They did not had working from home environment. The remote access VPN, what we used to call earlier, was limited to 5,000 users, 6,000 users, and very selected individuals. Suddenly, they came to us and say, hey, we want to roll this out to 50,000 users, 60,000 users. So, please help us. How do we do it? How do we roll out? And at that point in time, with lot of COVID restrictions, right? While everybody was lining up for the grocery things, me and my team were on the Zoom trying to figure out, how do we help this large bank, private bank, to roll out 50,000 remote access VPN solutions and things like that. While the product piece was very easy, identifying a product and then switching it on and then making it available. What I realize is that integrating into the bank, securing bank, assuring the security to the bank, that was the tough piece. The compliance checks. I talked about compliance, with a couple of people here. That was the toughest piece. While I could able to set up the entire infrastructure in less than 1 day, 24 hours or 48 hours, compliance took a lot of time. Convincing the ISG team, the InfoSec team, that hey, this is safe, this is secure, this is how we are going to implement the security controls. Even if the employee is at home, how do I going to monitor the posture of that device? How do I collect that information? And then based on the posture, I would allow necessary access to the critical resources, right? How do I do the MFA? Two-factor authentications. How would I ensure that they are not connecting their private machines or their home machines? They are using corporate machines. How do I track when they are logging in, they are logging off, and then what happens to this, what happens to that, and stuff like that, and all those things, right? It was an amazing learning for me, especially, right? It was new for the bank. It was new for the whole world, and I was really amazed and surprised that the bank community, right, could able to respond back to that challenge very quickly and rapidly. While the other industries was still struggling, right, trying to figure out, how do I do this? How do I manufacturing, retail, all those different industries, pharma, all those things, right? Bank could able to respond back to that particular situation way faster. That showcase the ability of the banking community, the elasticity, I would say, right?
Okay.
If a challenge is thrown to the banking community, they can solve that.
So was the solution kind of to the complex parts of the problem, not just putting in the technology? Did you have to co-create the solution, the workflows, the processes, the controls, or you just had the technology? And I mean, how was it?
So the product was ready, right? It's very easy. So you need 50,000 user to be supported for remote access VPN. XYZ device is required. XYZ solution is required. But integrating back into the banking process, because everything needs to be logged, everything needs to be authenticated, everything needs to be authorized. We have to make sure that person ABCD who is trying to log into the banking system is actually the person ABCD who is claiming to be, and he is using the right device, corporate device, right? And that corporate device has the best posture, best security, antivirus, all those NAC controls, network admission controls, tools, and all those things, right? They all are up and running. So tuning this solution to the banking requirement is the biggest learning for me, because maybe I'm sure RBI is imposing a lot of compliances and things like that, right? The bank cannot adopt any solutions just like that.
That's true.
Correct.
Even without RBI, I mean, they're so conscious about public trust and reputation that it's almost like a zero failure kind of system. It just cannot fail. And if it fails so badly, then that bank goes out of business.
Correct.
And there have been
my learning piece was, I always had that thought that banking's customers are slowest to move or to change, right? They take time. They want other industry to try that technology first. Let them fail or that technology to get mature. Then the banking community adopt that particular technology, right? I had that mindset 3 years, 4 years back, based on my experience. Whether it was data center technology, application technology, cloud, for example, right? All those different things. But during the COVID time, it changed.
Okay, interesting.
I saw banking community, emerging as the best community to, solve that challenge.
Yeah.
And then, they came out beautifully. I mean, if look at all the banks, they were on all the time. They never had lockdown. I mean, I was confined to my home because of, all those guidelines, corporate guidelines. You cannot go out. You cannot go for customer meetings. You cannot go, ABCD things. You cannot come to Palo Alto office. Be at home. Whatever you need, take it. Wi-Fi, stuff like that and all those things. And then, don't go out. But banks, I think within 15 days, 20 days, I don't know exact time, right? They were hitting the office. 50% of the capacity, stuff like that and all those things. So I'm simply amazed.
Go a little further.
Yeah.
So when you talked about a large bank with 50,000 users and all that, but and presumably this is a very sophisticated bank, tech-savvy bank. But what about the less tech-savvy organizations, financial organizations? What about those who did not have adequate number of PCs and laptops and Wi-Fi connections at home? Those who had people working in tier 3, tier 4 cities, even the big ones.
Even the big ones.
I was recently on a vacation in Kerala, in Karnataka, and many places there was no Wi-Fi. I mean, so it's not that technology infrastructure in terms of Wi-Fi or devices or power. Even power is a problem in many places.
Correct.
How did you support banks for these kind of problems? Maybe one of the solution, some bankers may thought my office device is not working. Maybe I can use my personal device.
Correct.
Was there some way, for example, to facilitate that with some level of security kind of solutions? Plan B. I'm saying plan A is perfect, but what kind of plan Bs have you seen in action?
Correct. So yeah, in certain situation we saw, one of the PSUs, they never had work from home policy at all. Right. So all the work is bounded to the desk. So person has to come to the desk to do whatever needs to be done. And then suddenly, the COVID hit. That particular bank reached out to us, PSU bank, large bank, very large, and then said, all our approvals are stuck. The executives could not come to office, and then we need something to be made available so these executives could approve things, right? They want access to the systems and stuff like that and all those things. And then we don't have a corporate laptop, so how do we do it? So for that particular bank, what we did was, we worked on two-phased approach. The first phase was identifying the endpoint and deploying an endpoint security solution from Palo Alto side, right? Making sure that even if it is a private or a personal laptop or machine, which may not have all those hardening and stuff like that and all those things, but they have our Palo Alto Network solution, endpoint security solution. So, making sure that endpoint is safe and secure to initiate that connectivity back to the bank. Okay, so first we standardize that piece, right? Okay, hey, whatever machine you are using, even if it is your kid's machine, because it could be, right? So it's a kid's laptop, kid's machine. Just install this agent, the Palo Alto agent, endpoint security agent, and then we'll make sure that that machine is clean. And then what we did was instead of we deployed this remote access VPN, and then we leverage VDI, the virtual desktop technology, right? So there was no direct access to the application, right? So the machine endpoint security, making sure that there is a baseline, then the remote access VPN, making sure that they come securely to the data center. We authorize, authenticate, multi-factor authentications, and all those things are done to ensure that it is the bank executive only and nobody else. Once they are connected through remote access VPN, we only allowed VDI. So they log into a VDI machine. From VDI, then they connect to their respective desktops. So on those desktops, we enable remote sharing, the desktop sharing. It was all Microsoft, right? So we created those policies to enable desktop sharing from those machines, and those machines were kept on 24/7. So the executives can log in, take personal machine is clean, remote access VPN, commit to the data center, access VDI, and then they access their desktop, and then they approve whatever they want to approve. So that was an experience.
That's okay. So you were saying that kind of plan A and plan B,
yes, plan B also
worked very well.
Correct.
How did all of this impact the employees? Were they comfortable, confident using the new technology atmosphere, ecosystem, or did they face difficulties? And I'd like to pose this question to the bankers also, that during your initial phase and then during the more maturity phase of lockdown, what was the response from employees? Were they confident and were they efficiently using this? But first let's hear from you, then we'll hear from the bankers also.
Yeah, I think during the COVID days, the priority was to ensure safety and security of everyone, right? From a health per se. So
correct.
Given that equation, the only option left was technology. How do we leverage technology to deliver what is required business to be run or operate? Because banking is an essential thing for the economy, right?
Absolutely.
It cannot operate.
Absolutely.
So it was not easy, I would say. I've seen people are struggling to figure out how do I do a VPN connection, and then the internet is not always stable. It connects, disconnects. Most of the people were not at tier 1 cities. They were traveling to tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities. The Wi-Fi was not good, great. Speed was not good, great. All those challenges were there, right? But I think as a human being, we adopted that thing. And I mean, we were chatting this, right, just before. Indians are more flexible. Right? It took some time, and then
let's say from bankers, and particularly, I mean, I'm sure you have each of your bank has a lot of people who are not tech savvy, who may be clerical, who may be field staff, who may be doing more of physical work. Did you have a lot of problem to get them to be meaningful in the initial days, or like Indians, you could figure out jugaad, all kinds of jugaad, and get things going?
25% of the staff or 50% of the staff. Initially, some staff members were really scared to come to the bank itself because everything was locked down. There was no transportation. Transportation was the biggest thing at that time.
Right.
We had to arrange transportation of the staff to the offices. At least we divided into 4 groups. That one person out of 4 will come on this day, second person will come on the second day. And that kind of things, some kind of transport arrangement was done. But the issue is there were no physical transactions, frankly speaking.
Correct.
Suddenly you moved from physical banking to totally digital banking. Because customers were reluctant to come, but at the same time they wanted their transactions to happen. They wanted their money.
Yeah,
and but at the same time they didn't want to come to the bank. That was what exactly was happening at that time. I remember very well. But then banks which had younger generation of staff members, new recruited staff members, there were less problems because they adopted to the new environment very fast, very quickly, and probably they were the teachers or mentors to the senior staff members during those period, and it went on. In fact, fortunately, NPCI had made mobile banking. IMPS banking was it was started at that time, and it is because of COVID IMPS became very popular.
Absolutely.
And people shifted from passbook banking or checkbook banking to mobile banking.
Mobile banking,
And
digital
that was a blessing in disguise to the most of the bankers, that your
Absolutely.
transactions were happening, but people were not coming. So footfall was less, but at the same time transactions were more. And no, the whole thing is surprisingly, deposit was still growing in spite of all this pandemic, all this issues.
The raw material kept
people,
coming.
Yes, people were not spending unnecessarily. People were very cautious. They went to saving mode.
Right.
That kind of thing was happening. And that also helped, I think, most of the senior staff members to become more digital, to learn more digital.
Yeah, so initially, yes, we faced a challenge. I mean, when the lockdown was announced, we were 6 days away from the year end. And, bank year end activities are multi-pronged, activities. So that was a challenge to get people, particularly the people who are required for those processes. But as he said, somehow we managed to arrange transport and get the people. But then we realized that the next challenge would come from allowing people to work remotely, because that was not only adopting technology but adapting also to the technology. So
Right.
what we found that, okay, IT department people, they are tech savvy, they could adopt and they could start working, but major challenge came from enabling the other users to work remotely, because we realized that this will go on for a long time, and for months together we will have to allow people to work remotely. So training them, ensuring that because initially there was a challenge of logistics, arranging the laptops, distributing that was also a challenge. So whatever they have, how can we ensure that they are able to connect to the bank system securely? That was also a challenge. And also training them to use. I mean, we initially found that we also not only have to train them on using their laptop, but also have to train them on using Zoom, using WebEx. So that was also a challenge. But fortunately, I have seen that bankers are easy learners, and they have learned to use technology, and not only bankers but also the customers, because after a few months when things started opening up, particularly e-commerce started happening, and we found that there is a surge in UPI transactions, and we experienced a surge of almost 400-500% in transactions. So not only the bankers adopted to the technology, but customers also adopted.
Right. So yeah, you are right that you said technology was the only option, and I think you rightly pointed out that training made it possible. Whether it's learning how to use Zoom or whatever else, because a lot of I guess everything was happening digitally. So it's understandable that from the point of view of a hacker, and of course hacking incidents have all kinds of fraud and hacking have risen tremendously. It's understandable that the big banks, the well-known organizations would be the target of anyone, whether in India or North Korea or China or wherever else in the world. But does a smaller, lesser-known organization need to appear to be how vulnerable? I mean, my question is this: if I'm a hacker, I'm looking for vulnerable organizations, not necessarily big. Okay, I don't want to steal $1 billion. Anyway, I can't put that somewhere, But if I steal 1 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees, 1 crore rupees, still manageable. So, how does a hacker look at organizations whether they're vulnerable or not? And then how can let's say a cooperative bank make itself appear to be less vulnerable to hackers?
So let me break into three pieces. How does hacker seize the opportunity, right? Very simple, whatever is being the application services which is exposed to internet, right? That is something which hackers watches, right? That what kind of IP addresses, what kind of domain names, what kind of applications, what kind of URLs has been associated with that specific bank. So let's say if it is abcdbank.com, that's the domain, where this DNS is hosted, how many A entries records, how many IP addresses, what services, what URLs, and it's very easy to do a basic search on internet and find out how many URLs the bank has.
Okay.
It's very easy. Just do a basic search and you will figure out. I don't know, but there was a practice earlier that the banks or organization used to print the entire tree of their website. Okay, I don't know if it is still available. I've not seen those in recent times, but the easy thing for the hacker is just go to that tree and figure out how this tree, is getting the branches and stuff like that and all those things. Very easy, and then they will maybe pick up those things. The other things which hacker will do is try and see who are the partners of these banks. So bank, because it is a regulated industry, they might have certain standards, audits, all those things, cyber drills, all these things are going on, right? So one way or other, they have a ways and means to identify vulnerabilities, and they will fix it. Banks will fix it eventually, but their third-party partners may not be that tech savvy, and then they will be easy target to get into a banking environment and things like that, right? With COVID coming in, that safe wall which banks created around their employees, right, that come to office and then office is safe and secure with all those latest gadgets and innovations and stuff like that. Suddenly the employee is out of that boundary, right? He's sitting at home, and the hackers can attack those employees and things like that and all those things. Social media is a very easy way to figure out who's employed where and stuff like that and all those things. So what I've seen is, in short, that attackers typically do a little bit of research and they will figure out who's who, what are the assets, and then they craft an attack accordingly. When it comes to, once they identified a target, that okay, I want to attack ABCD Bank, right? Of course the motive is financial, right? What we have seen with internal research, they typically try to avoid large banks because they know they will have all those things in place, right? So they typically will go after the mid segment, okay, because of they believe that there may be lack of process, there may be lack of technologies, skills and things like that, but they still have good set of account base, money flowing into this stuff like that. So financial motive, one thing. Second, they will go with the average bankers, they will target. And then with social media and all the information available on internet, they will figure out that who's who, and then they will go after it. The most common attack I have seen is in the bank is credential theft. Okay, for bankers, credential is the key, right? If I am the CIO, if I am the CTO, or if I am a basic teller or cashier, right, I just need to log into my system and approve one transaction, one large transaction from company A to company B. It's pending in my inbox. I just need to log in and say, oh yes, I approved, and then thing is done. If attackers could able to gain that username and password, he can just do whatever he wants to do. IT, right? If I am a firewall administrator, my username and password is the most precious thing, right? Because I write security policies, right? So if my username and password is gone now, it's gone, right?
But coming to the other part, how can banks make themselves appear to be stronger?
Correct. So this is what we see, trends all across, right? Now when it comes to bank defending themselves against these kind of threats, there are few things best practices, I would say, which people are already adopted and they're already at a certain level of maturity and things like that, right? For example, two-factor authentications. I think everybody has adopted, right? And they've integrated two-factor authentication with almost all critical set of applications, banking applications, IT applications, and things like that, and all those things, right? So I see fair adoption there, but I think there is a room of improvement there as well, because the application which we believe is not critical may become the foothold of the attackers coming into the organization, and then they spread. I think there was enough example that somebody hacked the AC control system, HVAC system in the bank building, not bank, I believe, manufacturing or something, right?
Okay.
They compromise that, and then from there they get into the organization. In the banking environment, it was a third-party vendor. They got foothold into that third party, and then they get into this. Mota, I would summarize in a way that I think people talked about zero trust, right? I think the right way to mitigate these issues is to implement zero trust in all segment of IT, right? Whether it is basic authentication, whether it is basic application access, data centers, all aspects. Just think, how do you take security physically, right? When you go to the bank physically, when you go to the bank, you have an iCard, right? And somebody will look at your iCard name, you might have a photo, you might have a biometrics to get into a data centers and things like that and all that. So your identity is being challenged continuously. You have to prove yourself again and again, and then you get access to the system. Same concept needs to be applied in all IT aspects of the things. If you are changing policy, maker and checker concept, right? Firewall policies, okay, I will make the changes. Somebody will, cross check.
Sounds good. Thank you, Tariq. Banking is usually about everything being tangible. Money is countable to the last paisa, even fraction of a paisa you can count. So tangible, of course, money is measurable, lot of technology is measurable. You can use technology to measure a whole lot of things pertaining to people, pertaining to processes, pertaining to customers, so many other things. But when it comes to people, there are certain things that are still not measurable, not tangible. Our feelings, right, are a perfect example that are there within us, that are very powerful, but we cannot always express it. Most of us are conditioned to control our feelings. I mean, would you agree with me that most of the time our family, our society says, don't express your feelings, talk about some things practical, factual, meaningful. But the reality is that in a situation where we are dealing with difficulty, we are dealing with uncertainty, where we are dealing with fear, whether it's a fear of our own health or fear of the bank system going down, or a cyber attack creating a havoc on the bank, then these feelings cannot be ignored. When you do transformations, we have done different kinds of transformations over the last 10-20 years, but of course our focus is more over the last 2-3 years. What are some of the intangible factors you have looked at to make that transformation more effective, more meaningful, so that people have less fear, less of any negative emotion, any negative feeling that they have? How has the management of the bank done something to keep the negative feelings down? I'm sure you did a lot of Zoom meetings or Zoom or whatever Microsoft that you used at that time. But did you manage to bring the intangible problems? How did you tackle the intangible problems?
So those were difficult times, definitely, and I would say people were not ready to the extent what is hitting them actually when the pandemic started, and what are the expectations in terms of running the business. People, I would say, actually understood the meaning of what is a BCP. Till that time you would do BCI, what is the impact of a business crisis or whatever. But when it was pandemic, there was no disaster recovery site, or you had no alternate places to send your people and work. The challenges were everywhere in terms of your own staff, providing the services to your customers. But like Tariq said, digital helped a lot in that way to the customers to continue their transactions day to day on an ongoing basis. So there was no major incident where a bank had gone down or there was a big break to the customer services which banks were providing, all sizes of banks I'm saying, right from cooperative to the top banks. And there were challenges internally as a culture or as a bank organization, the expectations of the customers and expectation of employees, both were to be managed. Unless you empower your employees to support your customers in those difficult situations, it would have not happened. Right? So you have to give them the right tools or continue business the way they were doing in presence or in physical environments. How do you continue? Certain things Tariq touched upon in terms of remote access, VPNs, firewall rules, etc. So those were the learnings which were quickly adopted by the organizations. Even though they were not that tech savvy, they had to adopt those and continue the business. I would say initially, by the time the pandemic came, people were relying, or rather the CISO teams were relying on ISMS policies. Yeah, which would be good enough to run an organization with limited scope and limited controls. Now suddenly there were cyber threats, cyber crisis management plans came into action. There was a lot of governance and guidance coming from RBI in terms of cyber security frameworks, to which those organizations had to comply. They were categorized as level 1 to 4. And those also gave a good platform for companies to rethink and do a gap analysis of their own preparedness to face the cyber security, barring whatever other problems where they, sir said, traveling, physically people being there, doing a cultural change, young generation, older generation, hand-holding, 50% coming staff and all. Apart from that, security teams and infrastructure and networking teams had those challenges of complying with the cyber security governance. So a lot of transformation was happening in terms of employees' way of working and how do they continue to do the business with the end users, customers, without impacting any of these things. So that was something which was intangible, I would say. Yeah, because it was not only investment into new technologies or investment into new machines, but this was the way you work, the way you think. Beyond the normal working. So that was something which everybody adapted quickly, and it was organization wide. Yeah, and you had to think beyond what you were doing earlier, because obviously people were not having all those equipments at home. Like there were no laptops, desktops provided. So whatever they had to start. And then challenges were in terms of many of the banks, including I think Saraswat, where in technology transformation projects were taken up. So that was a bigger challenge to manage while the BAU was to be kept running. Yeah, and also if you wanted to make a change, like you wanted to buy laptop, desktops or security devices, even the supply chain line of OEMs was a major challenge. Devices were not available for 8, 9 months. So all these issues were well handled by most of the banks and with the help of vendors. And I think that is what kept the entire banking business running. So the bigger challenges, but handled very well by the banking people.
Okay, great. Let me come to you, Bhaskar, as an extension of this. I can understand that the bank management was very security conscious. I can understand that the technology teams were security conscious. I can understand that the information security team was very security conscious. But did you observe among bank employees in general a greater awareness or a greater concern about cyber security? Or did they say, let someone handle it, why should I get bothered? I will just do my job. In general, what was the feeling?
I think that was a concern in the cooperative banking. There's a lack of cyber crisis awareness is not there. There's a lacking behind all these things. Definitely the people are lacking the cyber security awareness. That was the main.
But was there a concern also for the
definitely it was
average
a concern
bank?
it was a concern for people like us who are sitting at behind the table we are sitting, and that was a big concern because that was a period where huge attacks were taking place. When I was monitoring, I myself was monitoring on the screen. There's a huge attack from Chinese, then Russian, then Philippine, because it was on my screen only. I can actually monitor. And in our case, what we did, we have closed from all the geographical, we have closed. Any attack coming from outside, which is already blocked at the gateway level. So they could not penetrate into our system. But actually, I can see the kind of attacks which were taking place. It was huge. And that was really concern for us. And really, we should thank our vendor who had really supported us at every level, in spite of having the shortage of staff, but they supported us very well. And that was really a time which is really, because major attacks took place during that time. Why it was? Because during that time, all the banks, they started doing digitization. Because that was a period everybody tried to start doing digitization to the transaction at the mobile, click of a mobile and everything started. Because of that, huge number of transactions were taking place, and in that scenario, the security was a very big concern. It was never earlier for the cooperative bank.
Right.
Thank you.
Let's hear from our friend from Navi Mumbai. What was your experience during the initial days? In terms of, maybe you can give more of a employee perspective.
I will just like to speak few words actually. The main challenge was AGM. And being in small bank, the members were all orthodox, means not tech savvy to the system, but they adopted that. Even though virtual meetings were there, AGM and all, so they accepted. Some members joined, means not been in tech savvy. That was one of the advantage for that.
What percentage of the members actually?
There were few members, but they joined. Yeah.
So they figured out using their family members or neighbors or someone.
Yeah, we called them actually to join the meetings. After that, they joined the meeting.
Okay.
We have to set up a team over there to call them and make live the meeting.
Being a municipal cooperative bank, we were connected to the BMC organization,
Right.
and they are handling these hospitals, dispensaries, and everywhere, and COVID centers.
Correct.
All those employees of BMC are our members, shareholders. So that was a totally different.
Also?
Yeah. So these are the members of our bank. So ultimately, what happened? That became an inspiration for us. They used to go daily, and we used to come alternate days. So we have to keep our branches open during that period, particularly for these peoples.
I see.
So that was a totally different experience for our bank.
Yeah, just one or two examples I just want to tell you. One thing is, normally for the AGM, about 500, 600 people attend the AGMs in the halls. And the first AGM during the pandemic was held. It was totally online AGM was done, 100% online. There was, it was totally banned in the, people coming together was totally stopped in Mumbai. So our attendance was about 4,600 people. That number of people had logged in online to attend the AGM. Yes, that was one example. So that means people, if somebody supports, say the branch managers or some staff members in the branches, make the people to log in, they are willing to log in. That way, a large number of people logged in this one. One more example was, initial stages, many staff members were very scared to come. So we sent a circular to all the people, all the staff members, because we sent a circular that, if there is no bank, it is a bread and butter. Somehow some people have to come and some people have to attend the duties and do the job. So then we took a survey, made a survey, and in the first survey of 4 months, it was from the pandemic started in the month of March.
Okay.
So April, May, June, we took a survey of 3 months. Then we sent a letter to all those people, on general circular to all the people, listing out the staff members who attended maximum number of days, and we called them as they are the COVID warriors. So that gave a lot of inspiration to other staff members, and large number of staff members started attending the office.
More and more started coming.
After that.
It's a very good initiative. One point comes to mind, that there is infrastructure, there are desktops and PCs in the office, and then like I think you give the example, people working in rotation. How did you manage the logistics of the device? I mean, does the employee bring the device back and forth, the laptop, or if it's a desktop PC, then what do you do? Anyone wants to share how they managed this kind of logistics of the devices?
During that period, no, there were no logistic issues. Frankly speaking, everybody had a PC in the office, and people, 25% of the people attended the office, or
Okay.
maybe sometimes 50% of the people, 25 to 50%, and everybody had their own PC. So it was other way around. A large number of PCs were not utilized.
No, but the guys who didn't come to office,
Work from home, yeah.
when they're doing work from home, they were using.
No, they never used to work. In the sense, we gave them some other type of work, saying that we gave the list of the members and asked them, phone them and get other information which is not complete, like KYC informations and all that kind of work we give to them. So that
they're productive, but
some extent, I can't say they are 100% productive, but to some extent, their services.
Something is better than nothing.
Yes, utilized during
okay, I think that's interesting. Otherwise, they'll feel kind of lost that the organization doesn't need us, and then that can create more negative feelings. So, we're talking a little bit. We have talked a lot about past. Let's talk a little bit of the future. And I'm extrapolating from the past. You know, in today's scenario, for every industry, you have to be close to the customer. So if you're wanting to sell a two-wheeler loan, you have to be in the dealer's branch or showroom, whatever you call it. If you're selling a house, if you're funding a house, you have to be in the office of the real estate company. If you are selling health insurance, maybe you should be in and around the hospitals or doctors' offices or wherever. Because customers want your service where they are. More and more customers are not willing to or less willing to travel to where the service is provided. Also in terms of time, customers no longer say, okay, the bank is available only from 9 to 5 or 9 to 3. They want the service, whether it's banking or insurance or whatever it is. If it's at midnight, it is at midnight. If it is 4 o'clock in the morning, it's. So now to better engage with your customers, you have to be available closer and closer to them physically and time-wise also. How are you working towards that transformation in your people, in your process, in your technology, in your policies, and keeping in mind that at no point of time there can be a compromise on security, on data theft, on service levels. You can't say, today if I call up a bank's call center at 12 o'clock at night, you can't say, no, we are closed. The customer expects service even at midnight maybe, and it might actually be an emergency for the customer. So looking at the future, how do you see this evolving? How do you see banks moving closer and closer to the customers?
Physically closer to customer, those days are really gone. See, now you have to be connected to the customer at every time. It's not closer to the customer, it has to be connected to the customer. As long as you are connected with the branch and everything is going on, that's perfect. Even if you are logging into mobile, you are logging into your internet banking, then you have to connect, you have to give them information about anything you talk about. Even you can give information about their NPA also. So the moment he logs in, you can show that this the particular EMI is pending for you. Even the product you can display. There's nothing like you have to be physically connected. Those days are gone nowadays. It has to be physical. It has to be, you can connect socially, you can connect through using your mobile channel. Like it's now digital banking. As the things are moving ahead, it's a digital banking. There's nothing like physically connected. So those days are gone. So we have to connect digitally, but in a secure form. It should not happen that you're into so much into digitization and your backend is not connected, not secured. That will create a big problem for that. So
I was talking more in terms of sourcing new customers. So one is your existing set of customers, and you are absolutely right that it is the digital connection matters much more than the physical connection, except in some emergency. or stuff like that. But there are a lot of bank staff is now being transferred from operations into either customer sourcing or customer servicing. So looking at that future perspective, my question was, how do you connect to the customer physically, digitally, whatever way can? How do you envisage cooperative banks in their current culture? I mean, in their current business culture, engaging with customers on a more deeply and more personalized.
So I'll just try to answer this question. So first of all, like Sir said, this was a blessing in disguise. I think this pandemic which happened globally, it was one of the, I would say in my career, whatever 40, 41 years of career I've seen, one of the biggest turmoil happening all over the world, everyday news showing aaj itna gaya, aaj utna gaya. So that was creating a lot of panic. Plus our services, banking services were not included in the frontline services. So getting railway pass was an issue, kind of these were the some challenges. So sending laptops to people's houses or what, the logistical challenges, little bit challenges were there for sure. Anyways, so that passed. It was a blessing in disguise. A lot of our customers who are not tech savvy, being a cooperative sector bank, our customer base is little bit different than, the expectation from a cooperative bank is different, was different than a private sector bank probably.
Okay.
In terms of services and all, right? It was looked upon more of a bank which has more safe in, keeping my FD or savings and, and then investment I'll use some other bank or mode. But now because of this digital transformation that is happening, we all, I would say, are on the same par. So all the top 10, top 15 cooperative banks, those who have money to spend on digitization, I think in another couple of years, few years down the line, maybe we would be on the par with any of the private sector or international bank also.
Okay.
In terms of payments, investments, having your portfolio management services in the application. So this is where the differentiating factor is going to be. So the more we go towards digitization and serve our customers better, this is going to be a differentiating factor between the cooperative sector banks, which you will see going forward.
Okay.
You will see a certain cooperative sector banks moving very fast. Certain people are sitting here. So because of the technology adaptation by that bank, the expenditure that they have and the understanding of their board and backing of their board also. So these are few things which I think will make a...
Using more and more technology touch points is where
Yes,
the
and
future
that is how, right? I don't remember last when I went to my branch to do branch banking or to update my passbook. And I think after pandemic, my father, who was in BMC, used to go to municipal bank every time, now and then. But now I think your application has also been updated very well. Now he does all the transactions from home. So I think technology is for certainly going to be a differentiating factor. And if any bank lags behind, then God save them.
But when somebody is trusting a bank with the money, they expect highest level of, they're expecting highest level of service because I'm trusting you with my money, hard-earned money, right? What I saw is while the digital adoption increases, I also saw bank came up with lot of business channels. How do you bank with a bank, right? Internet banking, SMS banking. Right? We suddenly saw, WhatsApp banking becoming very popular, right?
Yes.
And while it was adopted initially by teenagers and the youngsters, slowly, steadily, it got inroads into all age groups. WhatsApp banking. If I have a query, if I have to reach out to somebody, the call centers does not operate after 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. Most of the banks.
Okay.
So if I have a query after that, whom do I reach out to? Right? I saw some of the banks adopting chatbots. Right? That hey, I have some basic queries, right? I have some basic queries. You put on a chatbot, and then chatbot responds back, hey, this is what. And then most of the time, you will get the answer. And then maybe tomorrow morning you can reach out to maybe your relationship manager or the call centers, and then banking executives to resolve your queries. But at least that assurance is there to the account holder that hey, somebody is there. If you want to reach out to middle of the night, this is the ways.
Right.
You do a WhatsApp, you do a SMS banking, you do a chatbot, you do a ABCD things, and then at least you will get an assurance. Maybe the problem will not get resolved, but you will get an assurance that hey, somebody is there. That's very, very important within Indian mindset. That hey, somebody is there, right? And then he's working towards it. I have seen, while this channels has been, multiple channels has been opened up, again there is a question of security, right? How secure is this channel? How safe is this channel? And I believe that banks has taken all the measures to make sure that that specific channel is safe and secure, right? I'll just give my personal example, right? I never done WhatsApp banking till COVID, right? But then with that I had no options, and I subscribed to my WhatsApp banking. HDFC, I use HDFC, so my credit card was expiring, and then I have to get a new credit card and stuff like that, and all those things. Enable international usage, disable online Amazon and all those things, usage, all those things, right? So with WhatsApp banking, I simply go say, enable this, disable that, stuff like that. It becomes very easy. Connecting it back to the earlier question which you asked, right? Tangible and non-tangible things. What I saw is, I live with my mom, right? She's like 65, 68 years old. Got two kids. One is in college, another is in school and stuff like that. There is a iPads and mobiles, personal computers, my laptop and stuff like that, and all those things, right? One thing is that when I started working from my home, the family could see what kind of work I do, the pressure we all take, right?
Right.
How much hard work we put into things, right?
Into the work.
Because my mom has a different
It's not
image.
just an AC office where you're relaxing.
My mom has a different image of me, that he goes, and then he's working with a multinational company, and then it's a relaxed job. My kid has a different image, my wife has a different image. Suddenly they saw, the pressure, the task,
real picture,
the hard work we do, and then so much effort we put into to make one thing work, right? They suddenly realize the value that we put in to make things happen all across, right?
Correct.
That's one thing. Second thing, I got exposed to what my kids do when I am at office. Or, now there is no office, right? So somebody is looking at mobiles and PCs and all those things, right? Because I'm security, guy. So I realized that he's downloading games, he's downloading some applications which should not be there, and then maybe it is a fraud. Maybe my wife is downloading some fake COVID test stuff like that, stuff like that, and all those things, right? Suddenly my mom wants to talk to my sister, and then my sister has a small kids, right? So he wants to see them, she wants to see them, stuff like that. That was the first time I organized Zoom meeting for entire family of 28 people.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Not all are from IT background. Somebody is in medical, somebody is in construction, somebody is into business, somebody is doing stuff like that and all those things, right? And then we had people 60 years old, 70 years old, and then they had mobiles and stuff like that and all those things.
Even 5-year-olds have mobiles nowadays.
I made them connect to Zoom, and then that experience, that face to face. My mom was very delighted, and after that she started using iPad. Before that she was not using iPad for whatever reason. She was using TV, and then she was happy.
Okay.
And then suddenly she saw iPad, and then okay, it's so easy.
Might
go to YouTube, stuff like that, and all those things. It becomes very easy.
So maybe.
And then I realized that everybody needs to have a sense of security. It's very important, right? Because I'm downloading application left, right, and center, right? I'm not realizing. So that's how I educated my kid that you should not download anything and everything. I educated my wife. I found a virus on my wife's mobile. During those phase. So should not download every application which you see. Things you need to be cautious. Put a little bit search, and then then only you do that. So I educated everyone. Don't.
That's good actually. That's good.
And stuff like that and all this. So that is something.
The whole thing is that the threats are such a variety of threats, and the fraudsters keep coming up with newer ways, that it's a never-ending exercise to educate yourself and your family members and your bank employees and everyone else. So that is one thing that the world needs to work on a very ongoing basis. I mean, you can never say I've got a PhD now, I can stop worrying about.
I got something extra to add. Uh, we cannot have a same level of service or system of service to all the customers. There are three types of customers in this country. One is like all of us. We want, before opening the account, we want to see whether there is internet banking services available, IMPS is available, whether all those facilities are available, then only I go and open the account. Correct. This kind of large number of people are there, and we normally speak of catering to those people. There are another category of people who are not educated at all. They don't know how to sign, they don't know how to read, and nothing else. So for them, the physical service or physical banking still is required to be provided. Right. And they are also reasonably large in number. And in the entire technology or whatever digital banking we speak, we totally ignore them. So they should not be left out for any reason from the banking services. So for them, the physical banking or nearness of the branch to their workplace or their residence is a very necessity.
Right.
For me, it is not a necessity. I can operate from anywhere. And the youngest people today, the newcomers who join the service immediately after from the institutions, many times they do not know which bank they have got account. They have got an account because wherever they start working, some bank will come and open their account, salary account and all those things, and give the debit card, credit card, whatsoever. And after 6 months, in fact, I asked my daughter, where is the branch of your bank account? She said, I don't know. Where is the bank? I said, which bank? Then she said, just let me check up. And she saw the debit card and said, this is HDFC Bank. Because this is the way the youngsters want. They are least bothered about whether near is the branch is near or far, or whether it is somebody is there or not to speak, or somebody is there to cater to them or not. They are least bothered about that. That is a new generation of people. So when we normally speak, we speak of our generation people who are educated, and okay, it is anywhere, whether the branch need not be near to my place, because I can operate with, even if it is far away. But the only issue is KYC. For compliance of the KYC, normally banks ask you come to the base bank. So for that, nearness of the branch is required. That is the only time you need. For that also, RBI has now liberalized. You can have eKYC, need not come to the bank. Right. Second, re-KYC can be done online by just sending that there is no sending a mail that there is no change in my address. Okay. So that is also not required as of now. So all those difficulties have been removed, except those who are not educated. Probably another 10 years or 15 years time, that generation may not remain in this country.
Correct. So how do you see cooperative banks preparing for some kind of better intelligence about any kind of threat that may come to the organization, whether it's from within the bank, from outside the bank, from outside the country? Certain countries are notorious for attacking banks in other countries, because banks is where the money is. And there was this case in Bangladesh, I think several years ago, where good amount of money was stolen. So how do you see, what is your thinking about, Milind, maybe you can take this up, threat perception, threat intelligence?
Somewhere we are already there, okay. So in terms of managing threats and all that, so we get a lot of advisories and intelligence from CERTIN, from RBI advisories, and from organizations like Palo Alto and all. They give the threat intelligence, and the advisories also say, okay, these are the indicators of compromise. You block these IPs, you block these services.
Okay.
So it's already there, and even RBI is also very, has a hawkish stance on this. You need to have an endpoint APT, you need to have a network APT in place. So that's considering the fact that threat can be from anywhere, not just from the external world, from the internal world also.
Okay.
So that way, so all these controls are being made mandatory now. So like we have the cyber security framework where they ask about 150 odd questions whether you have these in place or not. So all these are maybe different banks are at different stages of implementation, but yes, certainly and surely it's happening.
So when you look at the threat intelligence and threat reports that are coming in from various sources, certain and RBI and IT companies and whatnot, what is the sense you make out of this? What do you need to, give a simplified picture to the management and to everyone that these are the kind of threats that are most likely? Because all technical mumbo jumbo everyone will not understand.
Yes, so obviously you need not bother the management with all the technical jargon per se, but at least you give a comfort that yes, whatever is the regulators are asking for compliance or what is the threat intelligence we have received, yes, we have secured those known vulnerabilities or known loopholes and so on. It's never a destination. It's a continuous process.
That's true. That's true.
So you can't say okay now I am secure. So it never happens. It's always a catch-up game, right? So new threats come up all the time, and you need to be vigilant. You need to keep your eyes and ears open, and from whatever source you are getting with this intelligence, then you have to act upon it and take preventive measures. That's how it is.
Okay. Let me ask others also, that based on threat intelligence, is it more of tweaking what you have, the existing systems, or is it you need some kind of upgrade, or you need some kind of new solution? What do you see as the bigger challenge? Because threat reports must be coming in daily, but if it requires a system upgrade or a new solution, you can't be doing that on a daily basis.
RBI has already given a lot of advices, and cyber security is one framework which earlier it was not there for the cooperative banking, and they have given stringent procedures and all these things you have to implement strictly. Now they have mandated almost everything. See, what RBI is saying, that is different. We have to do it, but apart from that, the banks need to do proactively. There are many things which, because see, this is a never-ending story. Today you have stopped something, tomorrow something else will stop, because hackers are more powerful than us. They are using more powerful tools than the banks.
Okay.
Because every day something or the other is happening every day. Whatever it is, and so many incidents may not be coming out also. Being a reputational risk, many things may not be coming out also. But there are many things which we can think at gateway level. As I said, you can have a SIM solution where you can actually monitor the threats can be monitored, suspicious suspicious incidents can be monitored. Suppose if somebody trying to intrude into your system, he tried to do 3 times, 4 times, or 10 times the login is failed, then you have to see what is the source of that. Because everything we cannot stop it, but nowadays even we are allowing international transaction also, and in the present bank we are allowing international transaction also. So I just can't stop gateway. At gateway level, I can't stop a geographical transaction. I have to open it, and you have to see what is the source of that. So many things are there. Like we are working on it. Many other solutions, like RBI has mandated NAC solution. If somebody try to do something into your network, that should be stopped at the gateway level. They should not enter into our system. Those things has to. Again, there's something like a micro segmentation now, which is I think hardly few banks are there who are doing a micro segmentation. This is one area where we have to think proactively, because you just can't sit and relax that everything is we have safeguarded, we have done firewall, this, that, everything. That those days are gone. Another thing is that you have to do need-based access to the our own staff, because if it is not required, you don't give access to those people. You give only what is required. All those things has to be stopped it, and only
what is
need
your
based.
perception of threat intelligence reports that come? How does it help you plan for the future? One is to comply with
as I said,
security
compliance is a
guidelines.
one area that I said you keep aside, because that we have to do it.
That you
It's
have
a
to do it.
mandatory. There's no other option. But on a daily basis, you need a people who actually sit and monitor what is happening. Suppose if some incidents have come, normally in like Checkpoint, Fortinet, you get a report done on a daily basis. Suppose somebody trying to intrude and he failed once or twice or 10 times he failed, then that is the one area you have to think on it. Even in the SIM also, so many things comes out. We are using SIM, IBM QRadar, A lot of reports are coming from that. I personally look into that. I log in and check what are the events are coming, and I talk to my team, just look into this, what is the source and how it is coming. Those things are needed actually. Whole day I can't, whole day it is not possible for me to see but at least once or twice in a day, you just look into that. There are people who monitor what is happening where they try to find out the source, whether it is suspicious or not, the URLs are coming is suspicious or not. Those things, it has to be done on a
Is there a
real-time
lot of
basis.
false positives?
Many things comes out.
But do you have some way, have you figured out some way of reducing the
Many
false
things.
positives?
See, nowadays what is happening, there are millions of events are taking place. It is not possible for us to see everything.
Right.
So nowadays what is happening, this analytic intelligence, this AI-based solutions are coming out in the, so which is actually what you call it's a threat. Even that only passed to the report actually. Not everything. There is no need to see every event.
So
in
AI
that
is
possible.
seeing.
Nowadays, because it is not possible for the individual to see millions of events, it is not possible. So
True.
now AI-based solutions have come out where they will actually do the intelligence threat and they will pass on the which is actually suspicious to the user, and then based on that, maybe 10 event or 100 event or 1,000 event, those things you have to find out and you have to search which is required for the bank.
Okay.
That's it.
So that's the bank's perspective. How does Palo Alto use AI in a way that is beneficial to the banks?
Sure, I was just listening to the conversation. I agree, with Bhaskar that, the intel is delivered to the customer and, banks. And then it is left to them how they consume, in their system, and then, make sure that, they protect their systems against that threat. So if you look at threat intel, it's in the form of IOCs, indication of compromise, right?
Okay.
Now, when somebody, and then the bank can buy different type of feeds, right? From the OEMs, there are options available, including Palo Alto Networks. So we also provide the threat intel feeds to the bank, right? So whatever we learn from, so what threat feed contains is, as an OEM, what is our learning? We are the largest security vendor out there, right? We have the highest number of firewalls deployed across the bank, across the globe. Endpoint security system, cloud security systems, all across. What are we learning from those systems? So let's say if there is an attack which we see in Mexico, right? Since the world is connected, the threat can move from Mexico to Europe and then India, just like that. How can we pass on that information, that learning which Palo Alto has from that Mexico customer to Indian customers, right?
Okay.
So at the back end, what we did was, we created that knowledge sharing mechanism in all our product by default. So as a bank, you can choose to learn from others. Or if you want to participate back, let's say if something happens in your environment, you found some variant in your environment. If you want to submit that variant, that option is available. If you don't want to submit, that also fine, right? So that option is available to all our customers. So that's number one. Number two, all our products are integrated. See, one of the challenge what I see is in the bank, right? The bank would have easily 15 to 30 to 40 security solutions.
Right.
Easily, right? The larger the bank, the more number of security solutions.
Right.
The problem is, one security solution does not talk to the second security solution. They don't. And that's where the bank deploy SIM, SOC to make that happen, right? That is left to the bank. Right? So, for example, threat feed or intel, what we are talking, could be two ways, external, internal. Internal is, my IPS is detecting something. Okay? He's throwing a log. It's going to this IPS team and the firewall teams, right? There is a proxy team sitting next to it. There is an endpoint team sitting next to it. There are server teams and so many different things. Nobody is aware what is happening on the IPS. The IPS guy has to understand, extract, inform others about ye ho raha hai, and then this IP is, is the nuisance, internal or external, and then you take actions, and then that's how it is. So what we are trying to do is with Palo Alto Networks, with all our product, we are making sure that that integration is available out of the box. So if you're using Palo Alto Firewall, if you're using Palo Alto Endpoint Security Solutions, Cloud Security Solutions, that integration comes out of the box. And on top of that, we have something called a SOAR offering, security orchestration and automation response, where the day-to-day task can be automated, both from security operations perspective, the SecOps, the SOC, and the operations perspective as well, right? So typically what happens is if any threat feed comes in, right? So let's say if RBI says, hey, this is the malicious URL. So first thing the bank would do is go and block it. We cannot challenge.
Okay.
Right? We don't want to challenge. For compliance purpose, simply go and block it. But you also need to go back in time and say, hey, did somebody try to access that URL in the past?
Achha.
What is the mechanism available today? Manual. Right? We created that SOAR platform where it can do a query. It can look at the logs of all the IPS, firewalls, proxies, endpoint security solutions, DLP, whatever you have, right? Go back in time and say, hey, did somebody try to access that IP address, blacklisted IP address, URL, blacklisted URLs, blacklisted domains, and things like that and all those things, which is now responsible for ransomware, right? So that's connection, that stitching is very important. And that is something which we are trying to solve with our platform approach, right? The Cortex platform, which which talked about. So creating a data lake where we take learning from our customers and then distribute all across. So that's the data lake we have, Cortex data lake. Within a customer environment, if customer has multiple platforms, multiple products, how we can talk to them. Even if it is a non-Palo Alto solution, how we can ingest the log from Checkpoint,
the logs
dear
come
friends,
from so many places.
Our dear friends in the industry, right? Take that, stitch it back to the platform, because for you it is an incident, right? You want to see that incident in completeness. Who is the laptop? What IP access? What time access? Who logged in? Which firewall? Which resources? And all those, the complete chain.
Okay.
It could be Palo Alto endpoint security solution. It could be, Checkpoint firewall, for example, right? But you want to trace that.
So to sum up, what I'm understanding from what Bhaskar described and what you described, you need to put together three things. One is intelligence, AI of some sort. One is integration, like you described. And also, like you described, automation. Instead of manually checking whatever logs or RBI guidelines or whatever, all that is automated. So intelligence, integration, and automation.
On automation, I would like to give an example.
Okay.
Number of IP addresses which RBI is asking you to block is increasing day by day. 5 years back, it was like 5 IPs, 10 IPs. Now it is 100 IPs. How would you do it today?
So which is the bigger challenge? Let me ask the bankers here. The automation, the integration, or the intelligence? Typically, which do you see as the biggest challenge among these three? We discussed three things. One is intelligence, acting on that, getting that intelligence, whether from wherever it is. Other is integration, like he described. A third is automation, like RBI is giving you so many these things, and you have to manually do it. Integration is the bigger challenge.
Getting intelligence is a no-brainer nowadays because you're getting it from RBI, you're getting it from CERTIN, you just have to subscribe to that. Or even from the partners like Palo Alto, they are sharing those intelligence. How do you automate that? You have technologies to do that. What I see is a bigger challenge is the skill sets that the bank requires to manage that, to monitor that.
Okay.
So that currently is a challenge. Many of us will agree that to get those skill sets is a bigger challenge because you have those intelligence, you have the automation tools, you have integrated that, but is that enough?
Okay.
And how do you monitor? Because monitoring is something which you need to do 24/7 now. And you require those skill sets. Then you are also dependent on the business partners or channel partners who have those skill sets, and then you engage with them. But then you are largely dependent on them to manage those technologies.
You get
and
the
the
skills
integrations.
along with some skills comes along with the vendor.
Yes.
Who is providing the solution, but then you need
Internally also
certain
you need those skills.
internal skills.
Yeah. So either you develop those skills, you acquire those skills, or you get it from the people who have those skills and you acquire them. But the challenge again would be to retain them.
I will give a different perspective of. I will let me give a different flavor.
We'll do a small poll. Do you think skills is the biggest problem in making a secure workplace?
Now, the system was crucial. They wanted to, recover the data and stuff like that and all those things. They wanted to decrypt the data and they were ready to pay the ransom and stuff like that and all those things. Typical ransom demand is in bitcoins.
Yes.
They don't know how to arrange bitcoins, how to make the payment arrangements. No skills, as you rightly mentioned. How do we make sure that after paying them, they will give the signatures and then decryption keys,
Unlock the system,
right? And the decryption keys and things like that. We don't know. I mean, though they did not know how much data they had read and all those things and stuff like that. So we, the threat team, the Palo Alto team, actually brokered that conversation. Okay, so the initial demand was about $2 million plus, and we negotiated, we brokered that communications, and we brought it down to 200 to 300K. Okay, we asked customer A, we asked the hacker, to give us a sample, decrypt one part of the data, show us the data, give us that assurance, and then make sure that it is available, stuff like that, and all those things. They don't have any data with them, and we figured out where they are situated. We also work back-end with Interpol.
Okay.
Okay. So our threat research team, the threat feed, where it comes from, called as Unit 42. So we have carried out those very famous, ransomware things that operated from Nairobi and all those things. We give that threat intel team to Interpol to go and capture that guy who is operating from ABCD city. We track that person, that where he is. He's moving from here to here to here to here, and then this stuff like that and all those things. We worked with Indian government very closely. There was a breach in Afghanistan in Indian embassy.
Okay.
It's documented online. Okay. Lotus Operation Lotus Blossom or something like that, right? So we figured out from the dark web that something is going on in Afghanistan, in Indian embassy, and that's how the threat researcher figured out that hey, this is what is happening. The ambassador PC at home got compromised.
Oh.
One of the stuff. Okay, and then there was something going on. So one of our threat researchers, Vicky Ray, who is also from India, and then is operating out of Singapore now. So he worked with the Interpol, the Indian government, to identify that hey, this is the issue, go and fix it, and then we traced where the source is and stuff like that and all those. So it's a very different world. The what I see at OEM level is a different world altogether. What you see, maybe you're just receiving the intel. I think you made a point. It's very easy to receive. It's not. It's very difficult to. There is an information. How do you qualify that this is good or bad? What source it is? How it is coming to you?
Okay.
How valuable is that? How relevant is that? Okay, one of the small banks.
It's not simple as 2 plus 2.
Yeah, they simply block the IP addresses given by certain. They end up blocking offices.
What offer or what application you are giving to your end customer. So it's not limited to only secure coding or AppSec practices, right? From where the application will be accessed, where your data will reside, whether it's on premises, whether it is on cloud, all those aspects do come into picture the moment you think about a product to be close to your customer or give them a better experience. Because nowadays, better experience is not only UI, UX, it's about the scalability, it's about the stability, working from any location. So mostly it moves towards cloud. So the moment you start thinking about cloud, a lot of security aspects do come into picture. And every organization will have their own security policies, which will need to be stitched from end user to the backend data center server. So all these, everybody is thinking in those directions, and they are becoming a de facto standard now that minimum those standards have to be there before you release any application to your end users. Going forward also, these will keep on improving. Like you said, those threat vectors are changing, and people have to continuously improve on their policies and procedures. And most importantly, so educating the users, maybe internal users, own staff, or the customers on the threats which can exploit those vulnerabilities and create a problem. So that is also a very important aspect in terms of other than tools and technology. So that is what is my thought process on this.
Particularly cooperative banks, we are not totally digital. So we are like phygital banking.
Right.
We are physical as well as we are digital. Digital you can't avoid because you need to retain the customers. You need to acquire the customers who are in Gen Next. So we have to manage security at both the, as Santosh said, at the endpoints in the branches, as well as the touch points that we are offering. Most of the banks are now offering e-lobbies. So you need to have a secured environment in those e-lobbies also. You need to have security systems like you have on endpoints on those touch points as well as. And as he said about the applications or the multiple digital channels that are offered and used by the customers, you need to ensure that those channels are secured. You need to have your AppSec running continuously. You need to keep on upgrading your systems. So that is on the technology part, but you also need to keep on educating your staff of the secured way of using, because the as most of the banks would remember, when we started doing core banking, the first challenge was to tell your employee not to share your password.
Yes.
Right? So that was the
Yes.
basic hygiene we had to teach them. So from that, and also we need to keep on running the education campaigns to the customers. Though we keep running the campaigns of don't share your OTP, don't share your PIN, but still we see
those things happening.
those things are being compromised. People are downloading softwares onto their mobile, and then the mobile is getting compromised, and they keep and they come running to the bank and claim their money. So, but how do you educate them? So we have started doing that. We have started creating small jingles and shorts, and we keep on engaging with the customers through that. In the branches, we have created a role for the lobby coordinators, or like a sales officer who goes and teaches the customers, helps them. We keep on contacting them through call center. By the way, our call center works 24/7.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
So you need to have security inbuilt into each and every operations that you do, and ensure that, because we are custodians of the customer, they are keeping money with us. So we need to ensure security at every level.
Absolutely. Great. So thank you all. Thank you very much for joining us. Very interesting discussion.